welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. So it's been quite a while since I've done a book review video, and I felt like I really wanted to do a book review video on some of my favourite books on shamanism. Now, for those of you out there who haven't seen any of my other videos, and perhaps you're new to the channel, welcome. One of my first paths in spirituality was shamanism, and it was my actual first path actually. My mentor, my very first mentor, was a shaman. He was called Gachi, and that means ancient wise one in Shoshone, and he was a Shoshone teacher, so a lot of my practice and teachings that I got from him were a Shoshone way of doing shamanism. He actually helped me uncover my heritage, and I actually discovered that I have a bloodline in Native American culture. My great granddad, so 5 greats, was called Chief Kettle, and he was one of the last Indians to travel over from America to escape persecution. And when I researched him in the history books, it actually told me, because I was always told he made it over here, but actually that's untrue. What actually happened in the records was he had every intent of coming over with his son to guide his tribe to a new way of living and escape persecution, so his tribe and his beliefs and his bloodline would not, cease to exist through the wars that were going on around that time. And he didn't quite make it. He was sadly killed. It doesn't really explain how he was killed or what actually happened to him, but he was killed and he didn't make it over, but his son did. So I'm descendant from his son's line over in the United Kingdom. So he travelled over with some of his tribe and they started new lives here. And yeah, so Chief Kettle was one of my ancestors, and he was a Shoshone. So I did a lot of research into the religion and the cultural practices and the beliefs of the Shoshone, and that's what I based a lot of my shaman spiritual path on, because I wanted to go deeper into my roots and I wanted to bring that into my spirituality and my craft, and so that's where I began basically. So the books that I'm going to talk to you about today are some of the books that helped shape me, that I found particularly of interest and really helpful and useful in my practice and path. Now, these are not all the books that I've read. There are quite a number of books that I got out from the library years ago, and there's quite a number of books that I would love to have in my collection, and I probably will buy them and do maybe a second video on books on shamanism, because there are a number of books out there that are amazing that I don't personally own, but these are the 4 that I own that I found helpful, and I thought I'd share them with you. And as always, I'll score them from 1 to 10. I'll tell you about my personal experiences and what I think on the book, so my opinions, and I will give you an indication of what the content of the book is. So let's get started. So I'll start with the very first book, because it's not actually a spiritual book, it's more of a reference book. So this book is called The Encyclopedia of Native Americans, the ultimate A to Z of tribes, symbols and wisdom of the Native Americans of North America. It's by Adele Nosdar. I am terrible at names, I'm so sorry guys. But that's the book, and that's the name. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, which I probably guarantee I probably am, guys, I am sorry. So this book, so it's quite a chunky book. It's a decent size, but you could fit it in your handbag, so you could take it out and about and have a good read of it. I did read it from cover to cover. I found it quite interesting. There was a lot more about Native Americans that I just did not know about, and there were so many different bloodlines of shamanism and, Native American tribes. I was completely blown away, guys, mind blown, as they say. I enjoyed this book for a number of reasons. Firstly, I enjoyed it because it was very well laid out. It was very informative. The information was fantastic and very clear and easy to understand. I wasn't bored at all when I read it. All the information is listed A to Z, so if there's something you hear in a sentence or you read in another book and you're not quite sure what it means, you can easily look it up in this book. That makes it super easy. The one thing I do criticise the book for is there's no index. This is quite common of this kind of style of book though, the ones that are all from the Elemental collection. So there's quite a number of them. There's one on mythical creatures, I believe. I think there's one on vampires and the dead, and there's a number of them. There's one on spells, and it's something like 10,000 spells encyclopedia, and all of them don't seem to have an index. I wish they would. I do wish they'd include an index. The reason being because if I want to look something up super quick, and maybe I'm not 110% sure on how it's spelt. I'm not the best at spelling, guys, I've got to be honest. Sometimes I like to sound things out, so I'll go to that section in an index and I'll try and look for it, and if it's not there I'll go, okay, well, it sounds like this, but what other, letters do I know sound like that? So then I'll go and look for it there, and I might find it somewhere else, whereas I find it quite annoying that this book is laid out from A to Z, and then I have to literally go page to page to find what I'm looking for. I don't like that style of book. I don't mind the A to Z, so I know where it's going to be located roughly if I know about the item, but if I don't know about it, I kind of want an index to help me find it. The other point I would like to make, this book is filled with artwork and symbolism, so there's loads of Native American symbols throughout this book, which is fantastic, because there's loads of symbols that I see that I don't actually know the meaning of, and I can look them up in this book and figure that out, and I can learn more and go deeper into that symbol and really understand what it represents, and energetically be able to use that in my craft as well. But again, no reference or way to look up those symbols, so if you see a symbol and you go, oh, that's really cool, I know it's a Native American symbol, I know it relates to shamanism and a certain tribe, but I have no idea which. You wouldn't be able to find it. You would literally have to page through this book to find that symbol and then read about it, and that's quite time consuming. I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to things like that, and I would prefer an easy way to find it, like a quick reference that I can just look up. So I do wish that somewhere they'd have included maybe a chart with all of the symbols on, and maybe not give you information, maybe just give you the name of that symbol and the page that it's on, so you can then, scroll through, find it and read it and look it up and understand what that symbol is. That would have made this book a little bit better for me. But as I said, the information is fantastic. It has lots of religious information in it about culture, the practices of North American people. It's an incredible reference book, loaded with information, illustrations, maps and charts and territories. Let's just find you a picture or something. Not that one. that one was a little bit strange. I'm not going to show you that one. Let's show you that one. That was lovely. So yeah, so you get lots of lovely pictures like this throughout the book, and as I say, there's lots of symbols in the book as well. So like that, so you can look them up and figure out what they mean and reference them, use them in your craft, your spirituality, carve them into candles, all that jazz. So there's lots and lots and lots of information in this book. And when I was first practicing shamanism, there wasn't a lot I understood about the Native American culture, and this, because it's a historic reference, it gave me all the stories, the histories, it helped me locate information about my descendant, is that the right word? Ancestor. God, I'm terrible today, guys, I'm so sorry. So yeah, it helped me research my ancestor, it helped me understand what had happened to him, and how he came, his bloodline came to be over in the United Kingdom, how I came to be. Yeah, so that was really fascinating to me. I really enjoyed reading about my own history, looking that up and understanding more about the Native American culture than I ever had before. So for that reason, I would probably score this about 6 out of 10. I would score it higher, but as I say, there's a couple of things missing from it, like an index and a symbol chart, a way for us to actually find the information when we don't know anything about the symbol or what we're looking for. I think that would have been a nice added bit to this book. But it is listed A to Z. There's no good me showing you the content, because it's literally just, the alphabet. And then you just, go to that letter and then, look through, and everything once you're in that letter is alphabetical. And that's how you'd look it up. So I'd say about 6 out of 10 from me, but a really nice book, really well laid out, very informative, wasn't bored at all. There's loads of stuff in here about the chiefs, the leaders throughout the wars that happened, the rituals, the ceremonies, the ancestors, the spirits, the spiritual belief and practices, their profound wisdom. There's loads of poems and some really, really nice, I don't know what you call them, quotes? Maybe spiritual quotes. There's lots of deep information in this that really made me think, and there was a couple of things that I read that brought tears to my eyes when I was reading it, and I'm not really sure why, but it evoked some emotion in me. So I definitely really recommend this book. If you want to deeper understand the Native American culture and add that to your shamanism and to your path, guys, this one is probably the one to do it with. There are others out there, but this is the one I have, this is the one I've read, this is the one that I've enjoyed. So, that one, guys. So, the next book that I'm going to talk about comes with a CD at the back of it, so that you can actually work through it. The CD is called The 7 Sacred Meditations, and it covers east, south, west, north, above, below, and the centre. And it's an introduction to shaman ways, the path of the white wolf. And it looks like this. I don't even know who it's by. Robin Tequelas, Youngblood, and Sandy Detremont. Again, I'm terrible at names, guys, really sorry. I loved this book. I've got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is quite literally the journey with the white wolf to the centre of your life, and there are some really deep, profound meditations in this book. I can't stress enough how much I enjoyed this book. I worked through it quite a number of years ago, and I haven't done it in a while, but my spiritual family, my animal is the wolf, and I found this really, really interesting. Not every technique in here specifically about the wolf, but there is a lot of information about wolves in here. There's a lot of different information you can consider. There's lots of journal references and tips. There's meditations, chanting, drumming, ceremonies. There's smudging techniques in here. There's a lot of information in this book, considering it's quite thin and looks like it doesn't have a lot in it, but honestly, guys, it does. It has so much to reference in this book. It's a really interesting book to have. Now, let's look at the there we go, the content. Right. So the content includes finding the path home, raptor meditation, starting in the east, butterfly woman, dancing in the south, the Lakash, cleansing the west, record keepers, standing in the north, journey, traversing above, earth womb, grounding below, moment to moment, spiralling to the centre, taking pause. Then there's a number of references and resources where she says preparing for study, working in a community, honouring the sacred elements, and then there's a glossary, an index, some acknowledgements, and some information at the back of the book about the authors and their journeys as well. I can't remember if there's any recommended reading. I don't know if there is any recommended reading in this. There may be. No recommended reading, but I was okay with that. I think the information that was in this was really quite interesting. They gave a lot of rituals, a lot of practices in it that I'd never done before, and I really enjoyed working through the techniques in this. It did give me a profound understanding of how to work with the animals and the directions, and also it's a journey about oneself, so it's not so much about shamanism, the outside world, it's more about shamanism with yourself and your own personal journey. So if that's something that appeals to you guys, this one probably could be a book for you. And as I say, it comes with a CD, so it's got some really interesting things you can do on the CD as well. And as it has a CD, you don't have to keep going to the book over and over. You can play the CD time and time again and work through those practices as often as you like. So for that reason, I would score this pretty high, probably about an 8 out of 10. I remember thoroughly enjoying it. I think I read it in about a week, so really, really quickly. I didn't get bored at all. I really enjoyed it, and I thought their information, their knowledge, and the way they laid everything out was really easy to understand. I didn't get confused at all, and the CD was fab. It offered some great meditations on the 7 sacred directions, and it helped me discover a lot about my own personal journey and spirituality as well. The next book I'm going to talk to you about, guys, is called In the Shadow of the Shaman, Connecting with Self, Nature and Spirit. It's by Amber Wolf. She is one of my favourite writers in my youth as a practitioner. She writes some fantastic books, and she focuses an awful lot on working with nature, nature spirits, otherworldly travel. She gives you lots of fundamental exercises that help you develop as a person in your spiritual path and think more about nature, the cycles of the world around you, the weather. She goes deeper into nature than any writer that I've read about, to be honest. She gave me so much to think about, and this was one of my favourite books to work through. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this book. It has lots of personal stories in it, lots of references, packed full of information. I mean, it's a decent chunky book, but this is cover to cover packed with information, and it helps you access deeper power of nature, helps you incorporate nature more into your life and your spiritual path. I can't recommend this book enough, guys. This is probably going to have quite a high score. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's fantastic. So I'm just going to give you an idea of the content so you know what you'd get in this book. So she gives you a preface and an introduction, and then poetic image riding the wheel. So she talks to you about that a little bit. So that kind of sets the tone for the book and tells you how to use the book and what you're going to expect from this. Part 1 is attributes of the South. So sacred objects, sacred messages, sacred care, and shamanic medicine. Part 2 is attributes of the West, so sacred energies, shamanic images, shamanic healing, and sacred dreams. Attributes of the North, shamanic circles, sacred spells, shamanic cycles, and shamanic shields. And then part 4, attributes of the East, sacred keys, sacred symbols, shamanic maps, and shamanic sensing. And then she has a section on afterwards and some appendices. So she has empowerment images, the cycle itself, and then appendices B. This is a lot, guys. She has Four Winds Wheel, lessons of the directions, mineral world totems, animal world totems, plant world totems, human world totems, animal clans, chart of trees, astrological elements, totem care schedules, totem medicine, rays of energy, rainbow stone energies, sacred symbols, shamanic self-healing charts, sacred wheels, nature cycles and totems, talismanic squares, Celtic ruins and divination wheels. And then she also has like a bibliography, I can't say that word, bibliography, where she recommends some books and some information for further reading to you as well. Now, probably the back of the book with the appendices is probably one of my favourite sections in this book. You get stuff like this, which probably is going to mean absolutely nothing to you to begin with, but when you go through the book and you understand what she's trying to tell you, she references a lot of these for you to refer to and start working through these exercises and understanding them. She also gives you lots of keys of information as well that you can use. And she talks to you about how everything relates astrologically and how that all connects. So she has so much information in this book. It is a very handy book to have in your collection. It's something I think that you will thoroughly enjoy. She is very clever. The way she writes, I don't get bored when I read her books at all. I do sometimes have to stop and think about what I'm absorbing and actually think to myself what that means to me. How can I include it in my craft? How would I incorporate that in some way? How would I honour the spirits in the way that she's describing? What am I capable of doing based on where I live, the things that are around me, the plants, the animals, the trees? What's native to me isn't necessarily native to the writer, so I have to think about that a little bit. And this is where having books on totems and animals and plants and all the herbs are handy, and you should always have those things in your collection in order to reference. So some things that she mentioned to use, I had to look up and go, okay, well, I either have to order that online or I can replace it with this, because that's what, say, Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs tells me I can do. I can replace it with this, which is native to me and my homeland. That will work just as well. So you need to be able to adapt. And she does give you a lot of information in this to be able to adapt. She does talk to you about things you might not consider, like different sands from beaches, shells, all the different animals and the different animal kingdoms as well, and what they embody and represent to shamanism and using that in your craft. So there was an awful lot in here that resonated with me. I carried this book around with me for a very, very long time. It's packed full of exercises as well. There is a section in this that talks to you about working with your chakras, and she breaks it down to what each chakra represents. So as an example, the root chakra, which is your first energy point, she tells you related to the element of earth. She tells you that its sensory channel is smell. She tells you its energies are red, scarlet and rose. And she talks to you about the disease and stress manifestations of this one. So anger, frustration, insecurity, depression, lack of grounding, blood and nerve disorders and lower backaches. So if you're experiencing those things, she teaches you how to work with that chakra in order to free yourself of those things and start to self-heal. So a lot of this is about your own sacred journey, about yourself and your spirituality, and obviously bettering yourself spiritually and working through shadow aspects as well. There's an awful lot of shadow work in this book, which is another reason I like it, because she doesn't shy away from telling you we all have anger problems, we all can be jealous, we can all have these, you know, quirks, and she tells you how to work through that, how to channel that productively, and how to recognize that trait within yourself so you can stop it before it goes too far. And it really does help your spiritual journey. So I would definitely recommend this book, guys. And as I say, just to finish off talking to you about the root chakra page, she'll then give you some self-healing activities and some totems to work with to aid with those specific ailments. So let's see. So yeah, so you literally work through it step by step, and she gives you from, you know, 1 to 10 step that you can work through. So you go through those steps in order to purge yourself of those things. And she goes through all of the chakra points in the same way, so you understand all the different things to do with that as well. She talks to you about dreaming, working with your dreams and taking control of your dreams, recognising symbols, signs and omens in your dreams and around you. So she does a lot of work with the animal kingdom. So if you're somebody that's really into animal magic, or it's something you're thinking about getting into, she helps you recognise some of the totems that you might have, how those totem animals would present themselves to you, and how to work with those animals and energetically use them in your craft as well. So I would definitely score this book 10 out of 10. This is packed full of information, it's not boring at all, and if you really like the idea of incorporating shamanism and animal magic into your craft, this is a very, very good starting point. I will say that she probably is more of an intermediate to an advanced practitioner, and the way she writes this book is very similar to that. So if you're a beginner, this might be a little bit difficult initially, but if you can keep with it and go through it, it is worth it. So 10 out of 10 from me, guys. Love this book. It's one of my faves. So this next one I'm going to talk to you about is by the same writer, Amber Wolf. So it's called The Element Power. It's a Celtic fairycraft and druid magic book. Now you're probably thinking, but this is a video on shamanism, why is she including this one? The reason is because, as I've previously discussed, Amber Wolf is extremely good at what she does. She knows her stuff, and all of her books are written with this shaman style. So when I read this book, it resonated with me quite a lot, because I'd already read her Shadow of the Shaman book, and when I read this I was like, oh, I know why she's done this, and I can link it into that other book. So getting these two books together, I wish I'd have got them together, but I didn't. I actually got the first one, The Shadow of the Shaman, and then read this one after, and I wish I'd have got them together because they kind of went hand in hand, and some of the exercises I recognised between the two books, and I could link things together and work through each step by step and combine the books and the energies and the techniques, which would be really helpful. So that's one thing I will say to you guys, if you think about getting these books, these two work well together. So this book focuses a lot, as I say, on Celtic fairycraft and druid magic. However, the way she writes it, she talks a lot about the traditions and the psychology of working with the elements and the powers around you naturally in your environment, how to incorporate those into your craft. And as she is very big on Celtic heritage and Native American teaching techniques, all of the techniques in this are very, very similar to shamanism and how she presents shamanism to you. And this has been classified as a shaman book. So even though it focuses a lot on fairycraft and working with things like dragons and the fae, there is some really good techniques in here for working with animal totems as well and incorporating shaman styles to that. So if you want to expand upon your shamanism and not just include the elements and work deeply on yourself and work with the animal kingdom only, you can incorporate other realms of existence which are also conjoined with our realm of existence, and obviously these are just different types of elementals that we can incorporate, and she shows you how to do that using a shaman style. So that's why I've included it, guys. So the content, so you get a full introduction to the book where she talks about the Chronicles of Celtic Consciousness. Let me say that again. The Chronicles of Celtic Consciousness. Got it right. That was a mouthful. So chapter 1 is the elemental power, so the mystical connection, so Celtic otherworld and shamanic steed. Chapter 2, Druidism, its connection to nature and self-nature. So that covers Druidic self-discovery and experimental guide to imagery. 3, and no, I'm going to get this wrong for chapter 3, because I always struggle to pronounce this. Tuatha the tribe of Danu. I'm not saying that right, I know I'm not. Basically, it's an ancient fairy, it's basically ancient fairies, and it's of British heritage, closely connected to Celtic magic. Tuatha De Danann, I don't know. I'm not pronouncing it right, but I know that it's fairies and elves. Okay? And then under that one, she talks to you about the gifts of the fairies, the ceremonies for personal empowerment, so beginning to work with fairies. Chapter 4, the elements, reflective musing. So she gives you fire, water, earth, air, and then spirit. And she gives you exercises for working with all of those. Chapter 5, fire, the warriors. So blessing in the flame, shadows of the stones, the great smoking mirror, invoking the allies of the element of fire. Chapter 6, water, the priestly ones, the sacred pools, the healing rain, the silent storm, and invoking the allies of the element of water. Chapter 7, earth, the clan leaders, seed of self, stone sanctuary, museum of magic, and invoking the allies of the element of earth. Chapter 8, air, the bards, February's muse, the magnificent soft machine, quick wits and willy quarantines, invoking the allies of the element of air. Chapter 9, spirit, the fair ones, invoking allies and experiences of the other realms, the inner voyage. And then chapter 10, Celtic quest, crafting the keys to the realm, realm quest, the guided imagery to quest of the powers of the elements. Chapter 11, dragons of Tara, taking flight. So this covers the alchemy for crafting dragons, calling forth your dragons, and dragon practice. And then chapter 12, the weird. And weird is spelt the way that you'd say it for the ruin weird, the void one. Earth, laws and the craft, the way of the woven star. And then she has afterwards, and then a glossary, and some recommended reading at the end. So this covers quite a bit of information. Again, she always packs her books with information. She has a lot to talk about, and a lot of exercises, and a lot of teachings to give to you as the public, and she is definitely somebody that I love to work with and read about when I'm trying to work with myself, open myself up to new energies. And she was probably the first practitioner who got me into working Celtic magic and started walking me down the path of fairy. So that book, I would probably score it as about a 7 out of 10. It's a pretty good book, and as I say, it goes in hand with Shadow of the Shaman. So give them a whirl, and if you do, let me know what you think of them, guys. So that's all I've got for you today. That's the end of the Shaman books that I have. As I say, I have read many more, and there are some fantastic books out there, guys. Definitely give them a look, and if it's a path you want to pursue, it's definitely worth it. So thanks very much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please give me that thumbs up. Click the bell button so YouTube will tell you when my next video is out. And if you'd like to support me on my social media, I have an account on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course I'm also on Patreon. And for those of you who choose to support my channel through Patreon, thank you very much. I do appreciate each and every one of you. And that's all I've got for you today. So many blessings to you all, guys. Be good, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.